right, welcome everybody to another edition of the Artcraft Crowfall Q&A with your favorite developer. Well, I don't know if we're your favorite developers, with some of your developers, including myself, J. Todd Coleman, Creative Director.
And I'm Thomas Blair, Design Director, looking for my mute button.
All right. Yeah, I should have your mute button. That would actually make all of our meetings better. Ray, you're muted as well. Special guest star in the background, Ray. So, Mr. Blair, you want to kick us off?
Yes, everyone, welcome to the April Q&A. I'm just getting a little set up here. As always, the card. This is how Todd and I track the passage of time. It was the series of cards that we have from all of our development process. And every month we get to come in front of you and answer some questions, show you guys what's going on, and tell you what's coming out in the recent upcoming future.
You want to just kick it off? You want to start with what we talked about last night, kind of the big reveal last night?
Yeah, so for those of you who missed it, it was our partnership with Razer, which is going to be super awesome because it's highlighting our most recent feature, the Hunger Dome, and the Eternal Champion series of the Hunger Dome Arena Battles.
Right. So this is our tournament system that we've been wanting to do for a while. I'm delighted that we did the announcement last night with Razer. They're the premier partner, but we also have both Intel and Alienware as partners too.
Yeah.
So this is going to be a pretty big deal for us. I was pretty stunned when Debbie Sue came back and said, "Here's the list of partners." I mean, you kind of can't ask for a better lineup than that, right? This is going to be I don't know if it was mentioned, but we're also going to be on the front page of Twitch for every round leading into finals. So that's going to be every Saturday and Sunday during May. You're going to have another round, and Ray can walk us through actually what those rounds are. We didn't talk about that last night because we were so pressed for time. You want to do that real quick?
Yeah, no problem. So, okay, here's sort of the layout of the tournament. So, just like a regular Hunger Dome match, there are 12 teams of 5 players each, so it's all the standard things you're used to. And we are starting off with 6 qualifying rounds. So the way it works is 12 teams play in a qualifying round, and the winner of the qualifying round is in the finals. So that's just right. That's how that works. Places 2 through 7 go into a wild card, right? So we'll do our 6 qualifying rounds. That gets us 6 people in the final. Then we're going to have 3 wild card rounds made up of the people who got close in the qualifiers but didn't quite win. So those people compete for last spots. The first and second place of each wild card round, they go to the finals as well. So then it gives us our final 12 teams, and they battle it out for who's going to win.
Yeah, so pretty cool. I think it's going to be super exciting. So there's a ton of information on this that we're not going to go over because it's all on the website. You can go to crowfall.com and check it out at the Eternal Champion Series website. There's also I guess we kind of buried the lead on this one. There's $50,000 worth of cash and prizes on the line for this. So that's kind of a big deal. Team, we haven't actually started the application process for teams. That's going to be coming on the 13th, I believe, is when it goes live. At that point, you'll be able to log into our website, create a team of 5 people, and then actually apply. This is an invitational. I mean, if this goes well, our hope is that long-term we'll do more of these. But to kind of get us up and running, the easiest thing for us to do is do an invitational. So we're going to basically ask teams to get in and help us test and help us play Hunger Dome. And we'll be watching, and then we'll try and put together basically the list of teams to invite to the qualifiers based on what we think will make for the best, most fun match, both for the participants and for us and the people watching. So anyway, there's a lot of excitement around that. I'm not going to spend too much time on it this time, though, because we have so many changes coming related to campaigns and the MMO. I want to spend most of our time on that. But there were some questions that came out since last night, since we came up, that I did want to make sure that we got to. So question number 1 was, some of you may recall that at one point in our storied past as a company, we did a crowdfunded investment round where people could come in and do small investments in the company. And most people who participated, it was like $100 or something like that. So in the lines and the rules, it says, you cannot participate in the competition if you are an investor. Well, that kind of sucks, right? That people who early on invested just because they kind of liked us are now not allowed in the tournament. We would like to allow those people to be in, but we don't know if we can. So we've had to call our attorneys to ask that question. So if I can wave a magic wand, I would say that investors who have invested in larger rounds and larger dollar figures through the course of our history, they are of course not eligible. But for the people who invested in the crowd-funded round in particular, usually with smaller amounts of money, almost entirely with smaller amounts of money, I would like those people to be able to participate. I just don't know if we can. So I have to beg your patience while we go find out if it's legal. If it is, that's awesome. That's great. We don't have an issue with it, but we don't want to get into any trouble. So on that note of legality, we had some other questions about things like participation if I live in France or if I'm a citizen of this country, but I'm going to be in this country and stuff like that. We're going to have to check all those with legal as well. From my standpoint, other than impropriety, right, like employees and things like that, I would love everybody to be able to participate. The more people, the better. But we live in a very complicated legal world, so we have to run these things past our attorneys to make sure that that everything is kosher before we can let you in. So, given the choice, my answer would be yes, but it's going to take a little bit of legwork on our behalf to make sure. I mean, obviously, we got to do what we got to do, right? You know, we're not going to step on any laws. We got to do everything by the book. So,
I think the biggest question I've seen so far in chat, Todd, is what server is this going to be held on? Is it going to be on live or test? Because we didn't mention that.
Yeah, so it's actually going to be on a separate environment. We're going to set up a separate ecosystem that is a tournament ecosystem. It's a great question. I think we're going to put it at the furthest point east we can in the U.S. by AWS, because that'll give the best ping time for the maximum number of players. Unfortunately, we kind of don't. We might be able to look at the qualifiers and find a way to move them around based on where people are located, but I don't want to promise that. We'll take a look at it, but the general assumption should be we'll choose the location that seems to be the best for the majority of the players. That's kind of
they were actually more concerned about if they would have to go grind vessels on test or live.
Yeah, so Ray's going to talk about that. So we made a call on this first tournament to do archetypes because it'll just make it'll level the playing field and make everything much easier on us to manage. Longer term, I don't necessarily want that to be the case, but for this first one, I think it's pretty smart, and Ray can tell you the approach that he's taken to do that.
Right. So I know, don't worry, I've read a lot of comments about the current archetypes that are there, and those were made to be simple. We simplified those on purpose, right? You guys
new players who come in, you know, they're not going to know the meta, right? So we're not going to throw really complicated builds at them, even if they are more effective. We just wanted to make it they can get in and play, you know?
Right, because most of the players who have been around are looking at these builds with the fine-tooth comb. They're like, well, this would be better. I could maximize this. You know, this class is better. I can play this better. Odds are the people who understand that stuff, they're going to create their own vessels, right? And so with the current version that we have up, you guys are going to be playing your own anyway. And those are supposed to be simplified for new players. That being said, the tournament, totally different. So the archetypes that we're making for the tournament are for advanced players. They are within the meta. They are optimized. They are, they are made for advanced players to play and synergize together to create.
And there's a larger array of them as well, right? You're trying to get a solid amount of coverage. The last time you showed me the list, there was 18 of them.
Yeah. So, now I haven't finalized this list yet. We had 6 that were available again for new players. So, smaller choices, pick something and go. But for the tournament, we want these advanced archetypes for advanced players for you guys to start to create your own sort of meta inside your builds.
And so the first question is, am I going to get to see them in detail sooner, right?
Sorry, say that again?
The first question is going to be, am I going to be able to see them sooner in detail, right? Yes. And then the next question I would ask after that is going to be, I'm just letting you know, when can I play them? Right? Those are the 2 questions that immediately popped to the top of my mind.
Right. So first off, I'm still narrowing down the exact ones. As Todd said, I've got a list of 18. I might need to cull it down a little bit. I'm not sure. But I am currently building these things and getting some screenshots, and then Tiggs and I will create an article. We'll put that up so that people can actually see what the builds are for the archetypes. So if you want to, if it's not immediately available, you could create one and go, all right, I'm going to practice with this one, or I'm going to practice with this one. So what we might do is put the full array up, and then if I need to cull later, we can. But that's where we are right now. I've got the archetypes, I've got the builds. It's just a matter of deciding which ones we're going to go with. 18 sounded like a lot.
Yeah,
That's a lot of choices. So, that's where I am right now, is maybe narrow it down, maybe 14, maybe 16, maybe 18. I don't know. But there's a nice wide array of promotion classes. And of course, no duplicate promotion classes. So that's 18 of them right there. So, and every class is in there. Every race is in there. It's a nice assortment. They all come equipped with their runes. We'll make them level 35. But I think we're probably not going to level like via vessel or level via all the rune stones. We just have to look at that. We're going to normalize everything to the most extent to keep a balanced and even playing field.
Yeah, level playing field is really
that's the main goal.
Okay, so and then the last question I had was affiliates, right? So in the rules it says, and you cannot be an affiliate. So we talked about this one, and unfortunately, the simple fact is it's probably not proper for somebody that has an affiliate relationship with our company to be a participant in the tournament. So the only option that we really see, and this one sucks, I'm sorry about it, but the only option we can see is that somebody can drop their affiliate status and participate in the tournament. Afterwards, you're welcome to reapply, but you'll be going through the same process that you did before, which is not terribly painful, but we don't see any way to basically continue that commercial relationship while also having people participate in the tournament. It just doesn't feel appropriate. So I hope you guys understand. I don't love it. Like I want, like I said, from my standpoint, I want everybody to be able to play, but it is important that again, it's about level playing field and the tournament being fair. So I think that's while it's not my favorite answer, I think it is the right answer. So that's where we landed on that one this morning. Okay, so I guess that's good for tournaments. You'll want to move on to
let's talk about what just hit live, right?
Let's talk about live. There's quite a bit of new stuff on live, which is really cool.
Yeah, we just dropped 6510, which was a compilation of 6510 and 6500.
Right. So we skipped a release on that to speed ourselves up.
It was a pretty large swath of work, which is great because every publish puts us better than the previous one. There was a lot of good things in here that made the experience better. You are going to see, since we sent out another round of beta invites, you are going to see a lot of new people coming in. Just be good to them. Remember, the more people that you help in this game, the bigger the game grows, the better it gets for everybody long term. So I saw some great behavior yesterday in the general chat on Infected and in God's Reach, where people were just trying to help, which is great. You guys have been here for 3 years, and things that you know secondhand now, or like it's just built into you. People coming in have no clue how to do things, right? So help them out and be good to each other, because the more of those people that stick around, the better the game gets for everybody. Okay.
So there's a huge host of changes that came in 500 and 510. I don't think we're going to spend a lot of time on them because you guys have patch notes and you're already playing, and you're always more interested in what's next as opposed to what just went in. There are a couple things that hit in this version, though, that I think are worth highlighting because you might not have noticed. So one of them is the changes to the compass and the group UI. So before this, the compass at the top just had a little marker for every group member. Now we actually have a specific marker for every group member that correlates to a little mark next to that person's name on your group. So group HUD. And it's like Lucky Charms, right? It's like purple clovers and blue diamonds and red horseshoes or whatever. So if I've got the red horseshoe for Ray next to his name, now on the compass, I can look and find the red horseshoe, and that tells me how to find Ray, not just where are the majority of my group members. So that's really cool. Another one that came in related to that is quick trade. So if you drag an item out of your inventory and drop it directly on the name in the group HUD, it will immediately, if that person is within 50 meters of you, it will immediately trade that item, or basically give that item to that person, foregoing the need to enter the trade menu at all, which I think is really cool and super, super convenient. Because there's a lot of times when it's like I found some plate, I want to give it to Ray. I can't use plate. I know he can. I don't really care to actually open the trade. It doesn't need to be a two-factor trade or a handshake trade situation. He can have it. I don't care if he's not. I'm not asking for anything in return. So that one's really nice. When we do that, we echo to the combat law or to the log and to your loot UI as well, telling you where you got that item, which is nice. And there's another one that you guys should try out and let us know how it feels, which is in the UI section of settings. There is a setting that it's innocuous. It's called close windows on Wasde or on movement or something like that. So this one is interesting because while it's not floating windows, it's the closest thing that we have to that, because it allows me to basically run around the game while I have my inventory and equipment screen or my crafting screen or whatever else open, right? So like I can have personal crafting up, I can have the power tray up for doing loadout. So the important thing to know there is if I turn that thing, if I basically turn it to where it doesn't close the windows, as I'm running around, if I use WASD to move, if I need to retarget on something, I can hold right mouse button, and it will temporarily, while I'm holding it, turn off my cursor and allow me to retarget. So now I can actually steer while I'm in that mode as well. And we even managed to turn on off all the F to interacts in this mode. So if I need to run up to a vendor or whatever, I don't have to exit out of that mode to hit F to use the vendor. I just hit F and it'll pop it right up. So I personally, as I'm playing with this version, I think it is a much more intuitive and clean way to play. So much so that I'm wondering if we shouldn't swap it to be the default for people that are coming into the game. But I'm really curious to hear what you guys think about it. So please give that setting a try and try it both ways and see which one you prefer and let us know. So anyway, that's just a couple of the odds and ends that came from the mountain of changes that came in this build that I wanted to make sure that people check out.
Yeah, there was, for the combat side of the house, there was also a significant change to retaliates, where you can do a retaliate at any point now. So the CC is now, we're testing to see where we landed on the spectrum, right? Prior to this, retaliate was a no-brainer, and you could even spam the R button.
You use it all the time, you know?
Right. Yeah, so now, however, you got to think about it and when to use it appropriately. So that's good too. It definitely inches up that skill ceiling a little more in combat.
Now we did make some of the ultimates or some of the retaliate stuff that previously we were worried might be a little too powerful if you could just spam it all the time. Now we made some of it contingent that it only fires if you're retaliating when we really expected you to use retaliate, right? So I think that change is already in too, if I'm correct.
Yes, that those powers have been adjusted.
Cool.
So okay, and the final thing, I just wanted to put a general note out there. Sometimes when we put up a giant like profession revamp in our patch notes, we don't line item every single thing, so we don't have thousands of lines of this recipe now costs blah and blah blah. In the future, as we're not making giant revamps to everything, then we will line item those things. Because in the future, ideally, we're not making such significant changes. But now that we're kind of locking everything down from an economy perspective and doing all of our final tuning on that, we are kind of making some big sweeping changes to things that haven't seen love in a long time. So there you go. Okay, cool. So let's talk about what's next, right?
Yeah, I think that's always more exciting is to move to the future stuff.
The future stuff. So right now we're cooking 6520. We had announced a while back, and this has to deal with the whole 6500 and 6510. We were going to try and speed up the cadence at which we release things, right? So again, we're going to pack as much as we can into this short period of time and get you 6520. And the first thing on that list is we got Twitch drops coming in May, which to coincide with our Eternal Champions tournament, you can get all kinds of fun things from Twitch drops. Now, I really like the purple Hungerfied pig here. Emily, we'll put that up for you guys to see. This is just one of the things. I don't know. Is it up yet? Can you guys see it? There you go. Yes, it is the purple version. And then we also have the Twitch Tavern is going to be one of the drops. This is for your EK. It is a purpleized house, so all of the accents and everything has been done in purple. And then we also have the Twitch Throne, and it is a giant purple throne.
I see a general theme here.
Yes, everything is purple, and we're making lots of good stuff. Oh, the final thing to show was we got a special emote even for a Twitch drop, which we got a little video there to show you guys what that emote looks like.
The boasting.
Yep, this is the boast emote.
The WWE boasting emote.
So I think everyone is kind of familiar with Twitch drops at this point. It's stuff that we can give away. As you can see, it's all cosmetic only, so it should be fun, and it makes our partners happy.
Yeah, and this is more about, so from our standpoint, right? It's a thank you to you guys for watching the streamers. It's also a thank you to the streamers, especially the streamers who are kind of streaming us all the time. I mean, you've got a kind of a cadre of guys who consistently come back and kind of feed our community and help tie and glue the community together, and it's really cool. So we wanted to do some things that would actually help support them. So. All right, so let's talk about some of the other changes that are coming. You want to talk about crafting changes coming?
Let's talk about the thing that we've been waiting for forever. This was one that we cut a long time ago. It has made me eternally sad, yet Todd found a way to sneak it in, which is the factories.
Right. Now, it's a simplified version of factories, but it gets us over the pain point. I hope it gets us over the pain point that you guys are feeling right now. So basically what we're doing is we're adding a new recipe type that we can put on to crafting stations that allows you to feed in a template object, right? So normally the recipes are kind of arranged in a circle. You've got all the different ingredients you need. This is similar to that, but at the one, there's a template slot where it's like, here's the item. It's basically a Xerox machine. Here's the item that I want to recreate. So I can feed a sword into it. I then fill out down below. I set a counter on it, which you guys have seen. We already have the counter. So I set a counter and say, I want to make 20 of these swords, and I fill it out with the underlying things, and I hit go. What happens is it will then do a print run where it's going to manufacture for me X number of those things that are identical to the first one with a couple of caveats. One is you cannot make a copy of a copy. Otherwise, the economy would get so bloated with the best items ever, and they would never leave the game. And number two is when you make a copy of a template item, that template item takes a hit to its durability. So that means that it is a little bit worse for having made a copy of it. So I think that this is actually going to go a long way to cutting down on the number of clicks involved in factories or in item runs, being able to produce lots of things. And most importantly, we found a way to get it done sooner rather than later. So I do have some ideas, like longer term, we have some bigger ideas of things that we would like to do, but this was kind of like that minimum viable that I thought would get you guys over the hump to where you could create the items you want to create and you don't feel like it's just a tedious process, right? I don't want it to feel like work. And I hear you. For a long time, it has. The other piece of this was specifically brought up in this last version, which is bond tipper changes. And I think we have a solution to that as well. Do you want to talk about that, Blair?
Yeah, we're going to, the first.
There's actually two solutions to it, right? There's two pieces to it.
Yeah, the bond tippers became a ubiquitous component of any crafting resource, right? It's optional, but to the most diehard crafters, it's not really optional. They need to use them. And what the great part from a design standpoint is it lets us sink gold out of the economy, right? Because from a economy perspective, we are always looking to remove as much gold and items that you gather from the economy. Otherwise, you get into inflation and hyperinflation, and that's no fun for everybody because then all of a sudden gold isn't worth a damn, and you end up paying $99,999 for very simple items. So our goal is always to pull gold out of the economy, and everything just works. Now, for the tippers, they give us a nice knob where we can knob how much a crafted item should suck out of the economy, right? Now, the crafter may pass that cost on to the end user, but the overall nice part is to pull some gold out of the economy. And we're going to keep adjusting that knob. We're going to take the current version of the single click ones, and we're actually going to put those on the vendor for a straight up cost to purchase maybe 20 or 25 of them as a batch. And then the crafted version, we're going to take off the one use component of it, and it will be a duration based buff. So if you want to craft the crafted version, it will be better from a just click perspective that you don't have to click one every single time. And if you don't want to craft, then you craft the food, then you can just purchase it from the vendor. So that's what we're going to try in the 65-20 cycle. I'm working on those changes right now. We'll see how that works out. And I wanted to note on the factories that we're not doing components. So a lot of people were asking about, well, to make a longsword, you need to put in a hilt and you need to put in a blade. And underneath that, you've got a pommel, a crossguard, and a grip. And the blade, those components, what we're doing is you put the longsword in there and it has a different series of recipe requirements. In this case, it's just going to be metal bars and maybe a piece of leather, right? So we are going to tweak the recipe at the end, so there really isn't all of the subcomponent crafting that you do to initially make that item.
Yeah, no, you did have to do that. All that experimentation did have to happen on the original item, right?
Correct.
So it's not that that's going away. It's just that we're not going to make you do it 100 or 1,000 times, right? We're going to make you go through that process once until you get the master blade that you're like, this is the one that I like. Now I'm going to make the copies.
Correct. So if you now, I know what's going to happen there is the master crafters are probably going to end up crafting 10 or 20 before they actually get one that they deem worthy of making factory copies of. That is certainly going to happen. So it will still net you less longswords, hopefully. And then you just put the metal bars in there, you zip the factory, and it will chunk off the durability on the template item. Now, we are going to decide how many copies you should get out of one of those template items. Is it 10? Is it 20? What is it? That was, if you look back to kind of the roots of Galaxies where we pull the factories from, you could make 1,000 copies of anything, and that ended up crazily blowing up our economy. So we don't want to do that with Crowfall. So we'll set that custom amount, and you guys can tell us what feels good as we test this in 65.
Yeah, it won't be 1,000. It'll be in the dozens, would be my guess, right? I mean, we do want to keep the economy from going absolutely off the rails, but I think this will dramatically reduce the amount of clicking and the amount of steps, and to some degree the interdependency as well, right? So, because for the copies, you won't have that. You won't need that. You'll be able to just now, once you go through it for the initial master item, making all the child items would be much more straightforward.
Can you sell a so one of the questions, like right off the bat, is can you sell a template? A template is just a sword.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, absolutely.
It's not a special recipe. It's literally just the sword that you crafted, and now it can be used as a template because it is a pure crafted one. The copy that you make from that sword is not a template, and it can't be used to make a copy. Right? That's what Todd said at the very beginning. So there's no blueprint. It's literally just the sword that you made is actually the blueprint template item. Okay? So, okay, moving on.
You want to start with the import-export stuff?
Yeah, so one of the things that we've noticed through the playtest is that players just tend to import all the stuff they need to jumpstart the building of their keeps and other various things, like import a lot of gold, and it really does have an adverse effect on the campaign.
Right. Well, yeah. I mean, it's like if I could start a game of Risk and I break 500 tanks from my previous game, or my previous games in with me, right? So we have a general recognition that we think the campaigns, the dregs in particular, needs to be more encapsulated, right? So we had no import of equipment or no import of anything. We said we had just no import campaigns with belts. So that's not a great answer because that means we're basically resetting a bunch of people on their crafting. We didn't really like that. So we've asked for a new type of import rule, which is equipables only, right? So I can't bring in a giant stack of gold, and I can't bring in Tree of Life seeds, and I can't bring in a whole bunch of building materials so that immediately day one, I rush out, I grab the castle, and I have it built 15 minutes later. So it's equipables only. Now, the important note there is it's not equipment only, meaning I can bring in equipment that I might not personally be able to use with this character. It's just the item can be equipped by somebody. And the reason for that is we didn't want to just make it equipment, because if it's no token, it's not token based, it's just equip the things on me. There was an exploit where I could just lock a character to the account and then bail out, and put another one in and bail out, put another one in and bail out, and start bringing all this stuff in. So instead, we've made it to where it's basically I can bring equipment items in, but I can't bring in building materials and I can't bring in gold. I think that'll be really interesting part of the equation. The other one on the flip side, which is export, we have a couple changes here that I think are going to help us isolate this down. One is we just didn't have a no export flag. So we didn't have the ability to create things that are like, hey, this would be really cool as an idea just for this campaign, but we don't want it to bleed back into the game as a whole. We couldn't do that because we didn't have the ability to set an item no export. So that's coming. The other one is we have a basic issue with exports and alt accounts, right? And this is not going to be a shock to any of you guys who are playing, but export tokens right now are not really much of a reward because they are given out per player in your guild or per player on your team. So, and we don't have any limit to the number of people in a guild because we didn't want to put up social boundaries like that. What that means is if I want more export tokens, all I need to do is bring in more alt accounts. I can have as many as I want. So the change here is twofold. One is moving the export token amounts to, instead of being a per participant reward, making it a guild reward. So I get a set number for my guild and giving them to the guild leader, and then giving the guild leader the ability to transfer those to individuals in the guild. So we give export tokens out based on conquest rewards, which, by the way, we're making that more granular. It's going to go percentage. It's not just 1, 2, and 3 anymore because we want more participation. But conquest, glory, wealth, and power, all of those could give export tokens. But all of a sudden, that takes export tokens from being, it's not really a thing, I really don't care, to, oh, wait, actually, it's going to very literally dictate how much can be taken out of this campaign, which becomes a much bigger deal. So we're kind of tightening it in on both ends, right? We're tightening it in on the imports on the front end, and we're tightening it up on the exports on the out end, on the other end as well. What that also gives us the ability to do that we didn't really have the ability to do before is we can have a lot more control over balancing the internals of a dregs campaign, right? It's very hard to balance how many materials we want people to use to build their keeps when they can bring in as much as they want at the beginning of the campaign. So by solving those two issues, I think it'll have it'll give us the ability to balance these things in a way that we've really been suffering from not having in the past. So anyway, those are some pretty significant changes that are coming to the campaigns very soon.
Yep, and then we have more changes coming to the infected now that we've seen what people are doing in the infected.
That's true. Yeah, I did. I just kind of glossed over that, but now that we're seeing that, and a lot of this stuff is stuff that people have mentioned in the past as well. It's just that we move as fast as we can, and there's just a lot of stuff. One big change that's coming to infected is making a direct connection between the temples and Sky Point. Right? We don't want people to have to run that far to get to the PvP. And then another one is giving more locations and windows on Sky Point for them to fight. That's another piece of the equation.
There you go. And then the overall pass, again, just to make it more engaging and easier to get in the PvP for all of the infected. Yep. We've got, as always, in 6520, we've got more performance optimizations for the castles and keeps. We keep every milestone, we just keep adding more and more and more. It was definitely exciting to watch some of the streamers yesterday, and they were sitting mainly in the 60s. You watch some people with new rigs, and they're in the 90s to 100. And that's kind of amazing where we've come as we've started to optimize the entire game. That it's just we're not sitting at sub 10.
Like but we definitely still have some ground to go, and we're not done. We have a list of things that we set out to do originally, and we've definitely taken a bite out of that list. But we still have more tricks up our sleeve. So, so I'm glad that I totally agree with you. We've seen some really great progress there, but we're not done. So, just want to make that part clear.
Yep, we keep going there. And the web team is working on a game guide for the web. It's an online guide that covers everything you need to know to create, build, understand your choices for your specialization of the characters. And it provides an overview of the world's God and the Bestiary. So that is in progress, and it will start coming up on the web sometime soonish.
Cool.
And finally,
I've got one more campaign change that I want to talk about real quick because it just went to test, and I specifically need people, if they can, to log in to test and give us some feedback on it. So we have we basically have the ability on our melee powers. So there's a combat change for melee powers. We have the ability to turn on or off for any given power when the hit is checked, right? So if I have a power that hits 3 times, right now for the powers, on that first hit is when you smack the guy, and the subsequent hits, if I spin around, if that first hit already went through, it's still going to register on that first guy, right? We have the ability now to say, actually, I want free targeting through the course of this thing, that I could hit one guy, turn, and then hit another guy, and then turn and miss the last one. So we turned that on. We could turn it on across the whole game, but that seemed like a massive change that if you guys hated it, we would just have to go and undo. So instead, what we decided to do was try it with 2 classes and see how it feels. And then based on whether you guys feel like it helps or hurts combat, we can either finish out the work and do all the other classes and disciplines, or we can roll it back. So that's on the test server right now. It just went up last night, and it's on the Myrmidon and the Assassin. So if those are classes that you play, I would really love for you guys to get in and try that and see how you think it feels, and let us know. In a variety of PvP situations, try it with different latency. I think there's even a latency slider, so you can fake up worse latency if you wanted. Like, I'd love feedback on this one, because it's one of those things where we can technically do it. It's just a question of what's going to make combat feel better, and I don't want to make that decision without getting y'all's feedback. So, so if you can check that one out on the test server, that would be greatly appreciated.
Yeah, I'm definitely interested in feedback on how it feels in PvP. So fighting another player and having them move about all crazily.
Cool. All right, are we now down to the one last thing? The one more.
We're down to something you have been asking for a long time. Water everywhere, and not a drop to drink.
Okay, so this is, I'm going to give credit to Max and a couple of and Eric and Rudy and a couple of the other folks on this one. Jessica, they basically months ago, everybody knows how I feel about water in the game. Like, I generally just think the juice is not worth the squeeze, and so and it's usually super buggy and problematic, and so I always say I don't like it. So a couple months ago, Max came to me and said, well, I think we should really have it. I think it'll add a lot to the game. And I said, look, if you feel strongly about it, you go get yourself a set of volunteers who are willing to put in work on the weekends, and go do it. And if you bring it to me and it works, I'm going to have a hard time arguing with it. I thought that would scare him off. Apparently it did not. And he got a Skunk Works team on the weekends to go off and cook this up. And I think we have a video of it and how it turned out. The short answer is I think it looks really cool. In fact, we should play it with sound if you can. I don't know if it's playing yet, but
yeah, it's playing, Todd.
Cool.
And yeah, somebody said the first thing that I said when I saw this was like, "Oh crap! Now I have to design a fishing game." And somebody said that in chat. Where's the fishing?
Yeah, so we don't. So I will say we don't have submerging, right? It is basically it's kind of up to knee-deep water. But I agree. I do think that it adds a lot of life. So you'll start to see these bodies of water, creeks and lakes and rivers and stuff like that. You'll start to see those creep in starting in 520. What's this? The never say never. But this is my never say never moment, right?
Lots of requests for fishing.
Underwater combat.
No underwater combat.
This is but it does open up the opportunity for us to do additional biome work as well, right? Like swamps and things like that. So it is exciting, and I'm glad to get it in. I'm dreading the amount of work, but hey, they hid that work from me for the most part, so I can't argue.
Yeah, some of these, I love it when people can make passion projects like this a thing that's just, we got to get it in, and I'm really passionate in it. And you can see the results. They did a great job. Yeah, and we're still playing. They got a lot of footage. Does water guarantee debuffs against electricity? No, it does not.
No, when it starts with having water.
Right.
when you didn't have any water, the answer to all those questions was no. The answer now becomes maybe at some point, not yet, but maybe.
Ocean parcel biomes. There are far higher priority biomes than that.
Well, we could have a Great Lake situation now, but it would be a Great Lake that goes up to your knees. So.
They're going
cool.
straight with the suggestions.
Yeah.
This is why we can't have nice things, Blair. See?
Yeah.
Okay, so I think that's it for my list of things that I wanted to talk about. There's of course a ton of other stuff in 520, right? There's a whole host of other things coming, and there's many bug fixes and bits of polish and things like that, just like there was in 500, just like there was in 510. So you guys will see all of that as it makes its way to the test server.
Okay. And a reminder for our new beta test players, we appreciate the support in beta testing. We want your feedback just as much as everybody's feedback. This game has been steered largely by feedback. So we need that feedback. So please do the beta survey if you can at the end of the testing period, and go to our forums and leave us notes, because we read them. We read them, and often we react on many of the things that have been brought in front of us. Okay, so now we've got some questions from the Partners Forum, as we do. And the first question is, what is the difference between Helper Monkey and risk management? I always like this one. And in the experimentation phase of crafting...
So these are crafting disciplines, to be clear, to people who might not know. Those are crafting disciplines that they're subclasses that you can apply to your character. Sorry, go ahead.
Okay, so basically both of them reduce the risk. I showed Todd the probability chart the other day on actually what the probabilities in crafting, how they shift the curve over more towards amazing. The higher your skill is above the difficulty of the experiment. And both of these reduce it in different ways. One of them, risk management, is the final one and will reduce the difficulty of the entire experiment. And the other kind, from Helper Monkey, only works if you've chosen to add additional risk for higher bonus potential to make the item overall beneficial. So what it will do is it will give you two different avenues to choose from. And in some cases, you may want one. Specifically, as we go into forward future content and people start hitting caps, because then at one point you're gonna be like, well, I'm capped in this one and I can switch to the other. We like to do that where we give you multiple ways to do something, because choice is important to us. Okay, this question may have been answered over the course of 6510, but it basically has to do with, why do my dodges sometimes let me use them twice and sometimes they don't? Well, this was because of the way our resource system and the server and the client work, and we did away with dodge using a resource, and now it just uses a charge. So you'll notice in 6510, we now have the ability to put a little charge value in the lower right corner of a power, and it will just basically allow you to use it as many charges as you have, and it will cool down the slot over the cooldown. It's for us, it's far more reliable. I think it's easier to understand. I think nobody, I remember Todd asking me, what the heck are these little half arcs over my dodge? I never know what those things are. And that was the old dodge system. Yeah, now it's gone.
So to summarize this question, why is dodge broken? Your answer would be, try it again, should be fixed.
Yeah.
Right? Okay, just making sure. Too long didn't read.
Yeah. Okay.
Version. Is dodge still broken? No.
No. Why can't we purchase items, or I'm sorry, why can't we purchase items we can't use from vendors? So this was the thing we used to have, which was people were buying things they couldn't use. They didn't understand why, so we just locked you off. But that became super inconvenient if you were trying to buy things for another player or for an alt. So we just said, you can buy what you want. However, we'll have a little red warning there that says you need to go get this trait before this character can equip the thing. So there, it should say like, hey, this requires trait blah, and trait blah comes from blah. So
a corollary to that one too is selling at player vendors, right? Which was we didn't allow people to sell items at player vendors, and I think that should already be in. If not, I know it's making its way through the pipe. I can just go and generically sell something, so I don't have to go find a system vendor. If I'm sitting in front of a player vendor, I want to get rid of an item, I sell it, I get the gold. So, and it doesn't take the gold from that player, to be clear. It just, in that particular instance, player vendors act like system vendors. They also don't get the item. The item's gone, it's destroyed, the player gets a little gold.
Okay. And the final one, how do debuffs placed on opposing factions work in the Infected? So we made it so that Skypoint is the end free-for-all PvP kind of zone. However, if you choose to go up another faction's medium and high-sec security zones, we apply a debuff to you. So you can still go do it. you can go into those zones. You're just going to be at a combat disadvantage if you do. So basically, you just walk into that zone, and the zone goes, "Hey, you're not of my faction. You get a debuff."
Yeah, so this goes back to the question earlier, which because I think what's confusing about that is infected is serving two different masters, right? One is people that get to the infected, they may be only 16th, 17th, 18th level. So we wanted to give them a place where they could actually go and level, where they're not going to come out of the rune gate and just get rolled over and over and over, because we know that they'll quit. So that's why that really really high security area, when they come out initially, the debuff is pretty strict, because we really don't want other players cutting through to that. The next area, it's not as bad. It still is enough to keep people generally protected. Their level is higher by that point, so they have a better chance of not being killed, and it kind of levels the playing field, though, because those players who are coming through the gates are usually max level. Those players who are adventuring in that area are not. So that was the goal of that. The real problem, I think, is that Sky Point was supposed to be the area where everybody was fighting. It was very much like a realm versus realm kind of 3-faction experience. And for various reasons we discussed earlier, it just wasn't quite serving that purpose. So we're trying to get that fixed, right? And that implies, like I said, we need an easier way to get there. Don't make me run through those other 2 zones to get there. So we're fixing that. And then give me more things to fight over there than just the castle, and more opportunities to fight there than just the castle. So we're doing that as well. We'll continue looking at this and playing with it and trying to get it to that point. But it is supposed to be basically a way for players who are not yet part of a big guild and haven't played in a Dregs campaign before to get their feet wet in MMO-based PvP before they jump all the way into Dregs. So that's what the goal is, and to the degree that it's not serving that purpose yet, we'll continue to modify it until it does.
Excellent. Everyone is noticing Templeton, our one-eyed werewolf kitten, in the background. Yes, she only has one eye. Okay, so that takes us through our Ace Dev questions, and now we've got the questions from forums and chat.
You ready? Here we go. So this question's from Zol. What will the long-running campaigns look like? If the campaigns start to get the population to fill a server, will we also be seeing campaigns with more than 5 combat zones? What is the expected size of a typical campaign in launch?
So I've been saying historically that I wanted a campaign to serve about 10,000 players, which equates to somewhere between 2,000 and 2,500 concurrent. So we're actually not, from a server load standpoint, right? If we have 10 zones, we're actually not that far from that. I think that we're coming out at around almost 200, just under 200. Internal testing, I think we're actually a little higher than that. So we're not bad from a server load standpoint. We've got some work to do in terms of, the amount of monsters and guards and pathfinding and stuff like that. But overall players, I think we're starting to see some pretty solid engagements on the server and on the client. I have some confusion still about how packed the worlds will be, and this has been tough to nail down, right? Because I don't control how many players are actually in the game at any given moment. And so if we make the worlds too big, they seem completely empty and you can't find anybody to fight. If we make them too full, then it's just a bloodbath. And the moment I step out of the rune gate, I die. So we're trying to constantly find that balance as the players, which we can't control, as the number of players fluctuate going into launch. So the good news is that we do have procedural generation of these worlds. So we have control over that. It's not like we're locking ourselves into a set of maps and we're going to get to launch and be like, oh shit, we were just completely off in our estimates and there's nothing we can do about it. We can go in and make those adjustments. But even as early as recently as this morning, we were having a discussion about the infected zones and how big are they compared to the number of monsters. It seems like the number of monsters is too low. So can we increase the number of monsters, or do we decrease the size of the zones? If we decrease the size of the zones, is that just going to cut down the number of places for me to go and fight? So all of these things are interconnected. It's a tough. I'm sorry I couldn't give an easy answer because there is not an easy answer to give. But the high level hasn't really changed. I'd still love to see our clusters having about 2,500 concurrent on at peak, spread across all the zones.
Yeah, and I think, Todd, it's great to bring up for us as an MMO. We have a much easier way than your traditional MMOs of adjusting the world size and the zones dynamically. Right, because ours are all generated.
Yeah, for sure.
Right, so we just feed in the formula we want, and that's what we get out of it. Whereas in other games, they're kind of stuck with they have to wait to an expansion time or whatever before they can drop new maps. Dropping a map is a big deal in most games, and for us, we've kind of made that more of it's just part of our process.
So in terms of duration, like length of campaigns, if my current gut feeling is that 4-week campaigns are kind of like the baseline that we should start with. When we've done Dregs campaigns that are 2 weeks, it almost they just don't really fire. They don't seem to work as well. If they go past a month, they tend to get into server stagnation problems, right? Where it's kind of already, the game is already over. It's already kind of known who's going to win. So the 1 month seems to be kind of the baseline that I'm migrating towards. It's also nice because it's easy to grasp, like, oh, this is going to last 1 month. It's 4 seasons. It's going to be 1 week per season. So that's kind of where I'm gravitating towards, is for Dregs campaigns to put them on a 1 month timer. And then we can vary from there, but that at least gives us a baseline to start from. And once we have locked in the imports and the exports more cleanly, which we're doing in 520, now we can start to get a better control over the balance of materials that are spawning in forts and caravans and things like that, and the cost to build buildings, because we know, here's how long this thing is going to last, and here's how quickly we expect them to be able to get up to speed. Because right now it's getting thrown off when we say, okay, well, it should take them 3 days to get to this point. And, Matt goes and looks at the log. He's like, yep, it took them about 4 minutes. And the reason it took 4 minutes is because they brought in all the stuff that we thought they were going to have to fight over. So more fine control. I know it's funny because that seems like it's kind of a meh to most players probably, but to me it's a big deal. It gives us a lot more control.
Cool.
Alrighty, our next question is from Van Zant. Is there a vision for each promotion role when designing? If so, would it be possible to speak on that so we can tailor our class feedback to support such?
Yeah, so you want to talk about roles, Ray, since we actually are starting to make those more clear now as part of the matchmaking?
Yeah, the promotions themselves, they do have a place. We do go through that when we, go through the design feedback whenever we bring a class up for review. But like Todd was talking about, there are also roles, right? We have support, defense, damage, and then they even have more defined roles as far as melee damage or range damage. So there's a nice array of roles there. But yeah, each promotion class, we have a vision for the role it should follow. But while we do gear things that way, the things that I find interesting are when players take something that we may have envisioned to be one way, but all of a sudden they do a totally different build I never would have expected.
It's a fantastic point. I mean, that's the thing is, so we kind of put things on guide rails, but we also don't want to put them on such rails that you guys can't experiment. I mean, the exploration, that's why we went to the trouble to create 100 plus disciplines, right? And all these crazy different talent tree combinations.
Yeah, I've seen some incredible builds. Like I was expecting, I like this one, or I like this one, and this is a nice little, tweak here or there. Maybe this disc, that disc, these combinations. That looks interesting and fun. And I see those builds, and that's cool. But someone comes up with something totally different, and sometimes that becomes the meta, just something I hadn't expected, and that's a good thing to me.
Yeah,
right?
It's awesome.
There are other things, and I know the super high level players may say, this is the best, this number is the best, this is this or that. And that's fine. You've got the thing that you like. Others might have variations, and others may go something totally different and say, I just like to play this. It might not be, if this is your scale and you're up here, I might be here. It might be not the absolute best, but it's good enough. But it's fun for me to play. That's fine too, right? So we do have things in mind for when we balance, or for when we, design powers and balance things for classes. But by no means do I want anyone to be locked into that. I want the exploration. I want the synergies that they discover, and I want those cool things to sort of bubble up and move around. So
yeah, and I think that that's great about our system. Don't get so tied up into this is the best, and a new person has completely wrecked their character if they did follow that path. And yeah, I've seen that happening already, and I kind of would like to counter program against that, right? They may find something new, and we've done this the entirety of this project, which is we've had stuff in there that we purposely put in to synergize together, and people just never found it. And then when somebody found it, it was a whole great
And there's
revelation.
a bunch of that synergize well that we didn't mean to put in there,
Right.
that people find all the time. So
yeah, and
for sure.
also to a new player, their character I would say isn't wrecked. They don't know enough. They've been playing for 2 hours, right?
Right.
So if you've been playing for 3-4 years, and like, well, when we're doing 100-man battles, in the dregs, after we've got this, crafty gear and this and that, then this is the best build. And they're not to that point. Just let them enjoy the game, let them explore, let them have fun. We're trying to get new players interested in the game,
Well,
and
this
just sort of
isn't
learn that sort of
this
stuff
isn't an
as they
invest 200
progress.
hours situation either, right? If you're like, oh, I really wish I'd have chosen. I mean, first of all, there's respec, right, for VIP, so you can just say I changed my mind, right? And if you're playing a character to get them up to 30, start a new character is, I mean, it's a couple hours from a raw start, like with nothing. If you provide them a bunch of sacrifice items, it's far less. If you want to twink, we're all about that. We're like, fine, just give them the experience, let their friends twink them. Like, it's just with the I don't think it's I question the basics of the idea of, oh my God, I worked myself into a corner. There's so many ways to get yourself out of that situation. I don't buy it. To some degree, that exploration is also replayability. I mean, I want people trying out different builds and looking for those really cool combinations. That's what I find really fun. Like when you're thinking about it, when you're driving your car, you're not even in the game, but in your mind, you're like, oh my God, I just thought of I need to take payback. Like you're thinking of these really interesting combinations. That's playing the game when you're not even sitting at your machine. I want that. So there you go. That's a long-winded answer.
Yeah.
So yes, we do have rules in mind, but they are, as everything else, they are subject to putting them in front of you guys and seeing what actually happens.
Yes, please keep exploring. Thank you.
Okay. So our next question is from, I'm going to screw this up, Pist Keebler. Will we see improvements to the social UI features before launch, multiple channels in chat, functional group UI with less reliance on / commands, LFG, and friends?
Some of them, yes. Some of them we're going to have to suffer through, like kind of every other MMO at some point has some stuff that they didn't quite polish as much as they'd like. But there's one that we in particular are working on that we forgot to mention earlier, and that is a friends management within the game. And that's actually coming along at a much faster clip than I was originally expecting, which is great. That's pleasant news. So I'm excited to see that. I think that'll be cool.
All right, we have a question from Thon. When will the epic mount items be removed from testing since we have the transmogrification recipes in game now?
Best word ever.
I stumbled.
Everybody loves transmogrification. And that is with when you purchase a store mount, we give you one for free, and then we give you the recipe.
Okay, question from Vishen. Any plans to add more things to do in the open world throughout the game outside of siege systems in the campaign worlds? Hunger Dome doesn't count here because I consider it a battleground instance.
Okay, well, I'll take your caveat that Hunger Dome doesn't count. Okay, yes, we actually are looking at that. So this is a constant discussion that we have with players. The normal tendency is to say, hey, add new things. Like, hey, put in a new thing for me because I tried this other thing and I don't like it. And for whatever reason, I'm not interested anymore because it's old and busted and I want the new hotness. The question that I would like to ask is the basic statement of there's nothing to do outside of siege windows is completely false. Like, just objectively, that's absolutely not true. For whatever reason, you may not want to do those things, right? But we have outposts, we have caravans, we have monsters, we have thralls, we have leveling of additional characters. There's a ton of other stuff. You can go raiding. You've got a bunch of stuff that you can do in the game. For whatever reason, you don't want to do those things. So what I would rather do is figure out what those things are that you don't want to do and make them better so that you do want to do them. I mean, when a monster pops that actually has a sacrifice item that relates to a glory card in a canyon somewhere, and it gives an event notification that is not during a siege window, that is an event that is something for you to do that's not happening during a siege window, but you don't want to. So why don't we fix those things to where you want to do them? That would be my first answer. So we're going to try and fix those. If we can fix all of those things, and at the end of the day, you still feel like there's not enough activities between harvesting and crafting and refineries and events and thralls and boss mobs and glory cards and wealth cards. If you feel like all of that, you still don't have anything else to do, then let's look at adding some additional things. Right now, I feel like we've got too many things that are like 80%, 90% baked that we just need to go finish them out. So that's what I'm trying to get us focused on. So,
yeah, that's a great answer. And excuse me, I'm being told by production we need to wrap it up, B.
Yeah, well, that's fine because I think we are going to do a quick round of matchmaking testing here on test. Thank you guys for helping us work through those issues. They're obviously pretty critical and they're very, very hard for us to test. It's hard for us to test matchmaking when we're all sitting in the same, or our QA group at least is all sitting on the same network. So having the variety of networks and people connecting from all over the place with all different types of player behaviors and things like that, you guys expose the system to issues that we don't see internally. At least sometimes we see them internally. So if you guys can jump on, that'd be very helpful. As a reminder, I would really appreciate checking out the Myrmidon and Assassin melee power changes on test. Let us know how those feel. And check out the turning off your close UIs when using Wasde and let me know how that feels. Check out the quick trade, check out the new compass, and basically just check out 510 and give us your feedback. So is that it? I think that might be.
We've got a couple more things in the standard script. Let's show the Crow reward for the month of April.
Cool. And these are rewards that all backers get, right?
Yeah. If you're a backer by the 24th of April, you get this month's backer reward as well as any upcoming rewards in the future. This month it is the Hourglass of Protection. This is a totem. Is this actually on the belt or is this on the chest?
I don't know. I saw the concept though. It looked pretty cool.
It's a belt item.
Oh,
okay. This is a belt item. It's not a badge item. And it gives a 2% crit hit bonus from the gods to protect the crows. So this is something that you hang on your belt. I always love these little things. They really give a lot of customization.
And they work with any character. So any race, any class.
A huge thanks to all our creators, affiliates, and influencers who are continually bringing our viewers to Twitch and YouTube. Love the videos. The videos that help people are great. I just wish at some point we could get rid of a lot of our year one footage that's up there when I search for Crowfall. It invariably, I'm like, oh man, this is so old. Please just go away. So thanks everyone for coming to the Q&A.
Thank you.
All right.
See you next month.